Cain, Leonard Boyarsky, and Jason Anderson. Altogether, Troika Games. These guys once made the first Fallout, spent some time working on the sequel, and then decided to develop their own dream RPG, without bosses and investors breathing down their necks and meddling in the creative process. In its several years of existence, the creative triumvirate released only 3 games, the most controversial of which turned out to be Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines. Vampire has a tragic fate as it was released on the same day as Half-Life 2 and was dwarfed by the Colossus. Obviously, for Bloodlines, such a release was a death sentence. The game's sales were terrible from the get-go, which eventually spelled the end for the entire studio and its future. As it turned out, the company lived up to its name and released exactly 3 projects. A streak of bad decisions about Bloodlines effectively drove Troika into bankruptcy. But even despite the demise, it is still a brilliant thing that had the misfortune to come out at the wrong time. Nevertheless, in the 19 years since its release, it lost almost none of its appeal. So, what's so special about it? Let's find out. You're on Drigmatic. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let's go. This is not a review on the game, but we simply have to go through certain things. For example, the fact that there's a whole series of popular board games under a common setting called World of Darkness. It includes things like Werewolf the Apocalypse or Vampire the Masquerade, essentially separate entities with their own rules, additions, and adaptations. The vampire setting, in particular, is not limited only to these kind of characters. Werewolves and zombies have also found their place in the game. But all of them had to observe the Masquerade, that is, to adhere to a specific set of rules, which forbids those who possess superpowers to use them on people. Activision had its eye on the Vampire series back in the previous century. A long time ago, in the distant year 2000, the company released a role-playing game called Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, which gained quite a lot of fame thanks to its advanced graphics and varied gameplay. The jury of the Game Critic Awards at the end of the E3 1999 even gave Redemption the Best RPG of the Year award. Moreover, it even left behind such a mighty competitor as the first Deus Ex from Iron Storm. But why am I telling you all this? Well, maybe some of you have forgotten that Bloodlines had an ancestor that failed commercially, but managed to gather a small fanbase and even win an award at the world's most prestigious game expo of its time. But there wasn't enough ambition nor money to release a real banger. Bloodlines, however, is another story. As one historical figure once said, "This thing is stronger than Goethe's Faust, and even stronger than Redemption by Nihilistic Software, which outlived Troika Games by only a few years." Cain once insisted that the studio's third project should be its magnum opus of sorts, an all-time hit that would atone the sins and creative failures of the early years. To this end, the team decided to target the widest possible audience and abandon the classic fantasy of the first 2 games, trading it for modern Los Angeles, with its strip clubs, gangs, and guns. A city where the appearance of a drunkard can hide a powerful vampire several centuries old. In 2004, the first version of the Source engine was released, along with such hits as Half-Life 2, Half-Life Source, and Counter-Strike Source. Valve sold Troika the rights to use their engine for Bloodlines, but soon saw the game as a potential competitor for the second part of Gordon Freeman's Bizarre Adventures. Because of this, Valve didn't give full access to the current version of Source, constantly changed individual components, and poorly informed Troika about any innovations made to the engine. As if saying, "We only sold you a set of tools, the rest is up to you. What are you, a bunch of toddlers?" What came next was something else. Valve insisted for the game to be released no earlier than Half-Life 2. So Activision, the publisher, didn't think of anything better than to put the release on the same day as the upcoming hit. As if realizing the futility of such rivalry, Bobby Kotick's office decided not to splash out on the marketing. So, Bloodlines was known mainly to the fans of the World of Darkness and Arcanum, who monitored the success of the developers. The release of the RPG about undercover vampires was humble and barely noticeable, and therefore showed worse sales than both previous games. Just try to fathom that the second game of the studio, The Temple of Elemental Evil, was considered a failure even with 128,000 copies sold. And then a more expensive project comes out, trendy and player-friendly, but no one wants it. Even positive reviews didn't help. The initial sales amounted to a mere 72,000 sold copies. Troika released just one patch to fix a critical bug, then tried to acquire the rights to Fallout, but lacked the money and had to close its doors. And this would have been the end of it. But damn it, Troika deserved better than this. That's why the fans started polishing the game themselves, by making patches, mods and other improvements, which are being released to this very day. Other mod makers, like Russian Bloodline team, continue to squeeze the game for content that the developers themselves didn't have time to finish due to tight deadlines. The vanilla version of Bloodlines had unholy amounts of bugs, so naturally the game could not be played with comfort.
Why would they make the camera? Oh my god!
And official support ceased almost a week after release. So there's really no need to grieve about the closure of Troika Games. Their legacy lives on as much as the main characters of the game. In our opinion, it was the advanced variability that allowed the game to become so iconic. Because at that time, the only game that could boast something of the same level was Arcanum. But here, the variety of game moments was successfully complemented by a modern setting, together with the unique atmosphere of blood-sucking fantasy metropolis and tons of vibrant characters. Troika's project was to be remembered for generations to come. There are 13 vampire clans, or orders, in the world of Bloodlines, each with their own worldview and traditions. 7 clans are available in the game, to which you can pledge allegiance when creating your character. The Battle Fanatics Brewhouse, the Beast-like Gangrels, the Ugly Nosferatus, the Artistic Toreadors, the Sorcerous Tremere, the Regal Ventrus, and the Unhinged Malkavians. Essentially, they are 7 bundles of specific skills and playstyles. The Toreadors or Ventrus rely on diplomacy and have advanced persuasion options in dialogues. Gangrels, on the other hand, prefer friendship with all kinds of fauna and are able to summon various beasts during combat, from beetles to wolves. Nosferatus cannot travel freely on the surface due to their overly vampiric appearance. So they use the sewers to get where they need beneath the city. But the sewers are open to anyone, of course. On the other hand, the Freaks are excellent hackers. Malkavians have the reputation of lunatics among vampires. They speak their own language with various ciphers, which would seem like a total nonsense to an outsider. Playing such a character and arguing with the TV through the rich dialogue system is an unparalleled pleasure. Each class has its own unique dialogues, which, together with the reputation system, can offer a vast space for role-playing. Simply put, there's a real wealth of tools and options to play the game the way you like. It's as if the developers of Cyberpunk 2077 actually did everything they promised in the promotional videos and developer diaries. But unlike the very first game of the studio, Arcanum, which can even be beaten with no kills, in Bloodlines the combat system plays a core role in gameplay, so you won't be able to play as a pacifist. On the other hand, what else to expect from a project that has one of the best guns of Counter-Strike, the Styrog? It even looks almost identical to the CS Source version. Okay, guns, clans and skills are sorted out. Now it's time to talk about why we love this game so much. First and foremost, of course, for the narrative. The main character is given a second chance for an afterlife, but he'll have to prove his usefulness by performing various tasks and changing the balance of forces in the vampire hierarchy. Throughout the game, NPCs constantly change their attitude towards us. Yesterday's enemies become allies, and those who pretended to be our friends turn out to be a bunch of assholes. But the point is not even in the fact that the characters we meet are not always consistent, but in how well the characters are developed. It's a GTA level of character development, or even higher. Prince Sebastian Lacroix says, "Every minor problem is like a grain of sand, and each night I inherit a desert." Or take Nines Rodriguez, who has a weak spot for philosophy. People say these nights are bleak, but then, haven't we always been damned? The Vampire Network even has its own vampiric cab driver who, upon first introduction, tells us, "I drive people to their destination. That is who I am. Remember, wherever we go, it is the blood of Cain which makes our fate." And holy smokes, do these lines sound awesome in the context of the story. Plus, the game doesn't mind breaking the fourth wall. Our mentor in the beginning of the game, Smiling Jack, will shame the player for using cheats during the tutorial. Secondly, there are some absolutely crazy side quests that stick with you even years later. For example, in the side quest called Thinned Blood, the player had to perform detective investigation without any hints from the game, and then decide the fate of the newly turned vampire Lily, and deal with the consequences if he lets her go. In another quest called A Plague for the Angels, we had to find a Satanist named Bishop Vic and destroy his cult Brotherhood of the Ninth Circle, along with its zombified adepts, brainwashed with heavy metal and promises of a better life. But before getting to Vic himself, the player had to kill all his informants, who were masters of disguise. Many quests offer you a real choice. For example, the hostess of the Confession nightclub asks us to solve a problem with a Russian vampire mafioso named Boris Chekhov. The latter, in turn, orders the murder of Venus, our initial quest giver. We can kill either of the two, but we can also reconcile them, with the help of various tricks and persuasions. And most importantly, this way the protagonist won't lose any humanity points, which separates a vampire from a brainless beast, and especially from a vampire who prefers to drink blue blood for $110 per package or Elder Vitae for $185. Yes, that's also an option. Or let's take the sequence of quests at the Ocean House Hotel. It even won the Best Level of the Year award in 2004. There, the player has to explore the scary hotel, which hosts a poltergeist that prevents the protagonist from taking the quest pendant, and the fate of the ghost depends on who will decide to give the pendant to. In a separate side quest, you'll be given a chance to deal with them once and for all, should a number of tough conditions be met. We can also meet a vampire with a split personality. Businesswoman Teresa and slutty Jeanette share the same body, but the game takes its time to make it evident, creating an illusion that we are communicating with two different characters in different parts of the city at first. And of course, we can either get rid of either alter ego or reconcile the twin sisters and make them a single personality. There are also plenty of mass culture references. Simply take a quest giver named Romero, named after the iconic movie director George Romero, who once made the best zombie films in the whole wide world. In the game, Romero will ask us to guard a cemetery and, of course, survive a zombie invasion. Or rather to prevent it, and don't let the dead escape from the cemetery through the two available exits. If in 2004 the most saddening thing was poor optimization and myriads of bugs in the game, now these problems are no longer relevant. Modders were able to adjust Bloodlines to modern operating systems and finish Troika's work. After that, all that's left is an awesome world with its own lore and rules, which guarantees a full immersion in the world of Masquerade. The game also had great replayability. Different clans and the emphasis on unique skills allowed you to make each playthrough hard to forget, just like in Deus Ex, which the developers were actively using as a source of inspiration. Gamers have been dreaming of a remake for years, but in March 2019, they got a teaser of the sequel, Bloodlines 2. Quite a gift for the anniversary of the series. For the first time in the history of game adaptations of Vampire the Masquerade, they announced a game with a 2 in the title. But the sequel ended up in a production hell of endless crunches, team changes, and shifts of gameplay priorities. 4 years later, the development of the project never really got off the ground. Paradox Interactive representatives confirmed last year that the game's development is still ongoing, and the company's CEO even said that he wouldn't rule out the release in 2023. But there are still no precise dates, and instead we got Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt, a battle royale in the Masquerade setting. By now it barely has any players, although it was released less than a year ago. Instead, the old-timers prefer to listen to the Dab of the Night radio from Bloodlines, whose advertising blocks made for great meme material.
Ma'am, care to participate in a taste test? Here, try this leading brand of chicken.
Oh my gosh! Is that week old fish?
Now, try this.
Oh, this is some good chicken. What is this?
That's why the olds keep returning to the cruel world of underground Los Angeles, time and time again, soaking up its bloody atmosphere, which is reminiscent of the secret network of assassins from John Wick. Graphics-wise, the game is long outdated, but hasn't lost a grain of its charm. A combination of musical and design elements, together with vast possibilities, which allow us to visit almost any building in the city and find something interesting, all that is extremely enticing and only deepens the immersion. If we were allowed to take 3 games to a deserted island with us, the first Bloodlines would definitely be on the shortlist of the most suitable candidates. And what do you love this game for? Share with us in the comments. Maybe you like the sexy female vampires and the possibility to have an obedient slave? Or the possibility to combine stealth with gory shootouts? There's so much to choose from that you don't know where to look first, and it'll take you months to explore. Especially if we take into account the cut content, which had been cherishly brought back to the game. Well, it's time to wrap this video up, so be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and ring the bell, so you won't miss our next video. Okay, seems like the to-do list is complete, told about the game, promoted ourselves. Now it's time to say bye. And yes, just a friendly word of advice. Don't let your guard down when walking around Los Angeles, where any friendly face can hide a hardened vampire psychopath.